Me and my wife were at that show, but the only issue is we were way too messed up to remember, dude. Good show, though.
Hello, and welcome back to Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City, where we explore the history and people of Troy, New York, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, John Salka. This episode, we're diving into a stop in the Collar City by one of the world's most famous and recognizable voices, the Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne. You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who isn't familiar with Ozzy Osbourne. Let's see. Heavy metal legend, prolific user and abuser of drugs and alcohol, reality TV dad, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee. A native son of Birmingham, England, John Michael Osbourne was the fourth of 6 children raised by working-class parents. He eventually formed Black Sabbath, first called Earth, in 1968 with fellow bandmates Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward. The foursome released 7 studio albums together before Ozzy was fired for the aforementioned drug and alcohol abuse, after which he launched a wildly successful solo career, beginning with his Blizzard of Oz LP featuring the all-time heavy metal classics Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley. 16 years after release of that first solo record and 27 years after the founding of Sabbath, Ozzy arrived at the RPI Field House for his first and only concert in the Collar City on January 27th, 1996. For those longtime listeners who follow the show, many will already know our long-term plans included a retrospective on Ozzy's 1996 performance at the Field House. But it was 2 events, Ozzy's farewell performance with Black Sabbath in 2025, and the rediscovery of footage of his performance in Troy that kicked our plans into overdrive. A preview trailer was recorded, we launched a new webpage, released the teaser episode, and blasted out a press release asking for contributions from fans who were there in Troy that night. And the response? It was huge. We were inundated with voicemails, emails, and audio recordings from fans across the capital region and beyond. We were even featured on the local news.
Okay, Ozzy Osbourne fans, metal music fans, you want to be on a podcast? Here's a chance.
Well, a local history podcast wants to hear from you. The podcast is called Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City. The podcast team says they've recently rediscovered audio and video of Ozzy's show in the Collar City. That happened January 27th, 1996.
And the team, they want you to send in your memories. We have a special link for you to do that all on our website. We also learned that we got a couple of people here at the station who might have been there at that concert, so it's a big deal.
Send in your memories.
But less than 24 hours after the initial burst of excitement, the story about Ozzy took a tragic turn.
Ozzy Osbourne, the self-anointed Prince of Darkness who helped pioneer heavy metal's loud, hard-charging sound with Black Sabbath, has died. Ozzy was a dominant figure in rock.
Heavy metal legend and reality TV pioneer Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76.
His family. Fans tonight remembering the life of legendary rocker Ozzy Osbourne, who died today at the age of 76. People were seen leaving flowers.
The Black Sabbath lead singer Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76. His family.
I'm going to be honest here. The sudden death of the Prince of Darkness sent me for a loop, especially coming so shortly after his final farewell concert in Birmingham less than 3 weeks earlier. For the last 6 months or so, I've been spinning Sabbath and Ozzy albums on repeat, experiencing those classic era songs all over again, and getting lost in the memories of hearing those tracks for the first time. For most heavy metal fans, Ozzy occupies a place somewhere in their hearts, either as a gateway to heavier music or perhaps a reminder of our own youth. Losing someone like Ozzy feels like a small connection is broken and marks an end to a specific era in many of our lives. Heavy stuff. Heavy stuff. But as Ozzy so succinctly put it, never say die. So today, we're diving into Ozzy's thrilling 1996 concert at the RPI Field House in Troy, New York, as told by the people who were there that night. It was a wintry mess the night of Ozzy's triumphant return to the Capital Region in 1996. The Albany, Schenectady, Troy, Saratoga area was a frequent stop for Ozzy's traveling heavy metal circus, including previous concerts at the Glens Falls Civic Center and Saratoga Performing Arts Center. Ozzy's set at the Field House that cold January evening kicked off with the iconic track Paranoid, from the album of the same name that helped propel Black Sabbath into superstardom. But in 1992, 4 years prior to the Troy concert, Ozzy announced his upcoming tour, aptly titled No More Tours, would be his last. Despite flying high with his latest album, No More Tears, personal health struggles continued to plague the former Sabbath frontman and heavy metal icon. In fact, Sharon Osbourne's 1996 autobiography stated a mistaken multiple sclerosis diagnosis and Ozzy's serious and ongoing issues with drug and alcohol abuse led to their decision to call it quits. In other interviews, Ozzy cited his desire to be home with his family more, especially with such young children.
This next, I'm cutting the touring way back because I've been married twice and I'm fed up of being a telephone father, you know?
Yeah.
Because my wife also is away from periodic times, and we want to be more of a family because, you know, years go by so quickly and then they've married and they've gone and then you think, well, what happened to my kids, you know?
Yeah.
However, by the time 1995 rolled around, Ozzy was back out on the road with the Retirement Sucks Tour, which kicked off of June that year and continued through October of 1996. Including a stop in Troy with a revamped lineup and a new album, Osmosis. The evening featured a packed set list of Ozzy and Sabbath classics. Get this, fans who spun the turnstile that night paid just $22.50 for a ticket to see the triple bill of Ozzy Osbourne, Korn, and Life of Agony. What a deal, right? The Ozzy show also marked the return of major concerts to the Field House after a number of years. Construction of the Knickerbocker Arena in nearby Albany represented new competition for acts eager to perform for larger audiences. Ozzy's show in Troy would be the first of several major concerts at the Field House for 1996 that aimed to relaunch the venue as a premier destination for live music in the Capital Region, including the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Alanis Morissette, and others. For many fans of heavy metal music, the Ozzy concert was seen as welcome news, including Matt H., who frequently saw shows at the Field House prior to 1996.
You know, RPI Field House, Houston Field House, so many great shows there. This was actually the second to last concert I saw there. About 3 weeks later, I saw Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Rumors of the return of live music to the arena began to spread throughout RPI as students returned to campus in the fall of 1995 following summer break. Those used to catching hockey games at RPI's arena began to speculate on what the future held for the return of concerts to the Field House.
So I remember in the fall semester, there started to be talk of concerts coming back to the Field House, and I didn't hear any particular names yet, but everyone was kind of buzzing on it.
This is the voice of Joe Frieda, RPI class of 1996.
I was an industrial engineering major, but I was also involved in a lot of activities, student government. As a student senator, I worked for the Polytechnic newspaper. I was the advertising director that year and did some occasional articles too, like the one for this concert.
We spent a tremendous amount of time researching for this episode, scouring old news articles, photos, videos, and other sources, including the online archive of RPI's student-run newspaper, The Polytechnic. Leafing through the digital pages, we found exactly what we were looking for. January 31, 1996, page 14. Ozzy Rocks Field House by Joe Frieda. So imagine our surprise when an email from Joe landed in our inbox. After juggling schedules for months, we finally connected with Joe, who shared how he ended up being assigned to cover the Ozzy show that evening in Troy.
I had not really done a features article before. And in those days, what would usually happen is the features editor, I think it was Sean at the time, they would get tickets to those shows from the promoters to help get the coverage and write a review of it because it would be good publicity. That particular show, for some reason, they did not get tickets. We needed to have it covered, obviously. It was a huge event. And I did like to write an article every so often, so I decided to write the article up, and being an Ozzy fan and being really into the show myself, I gave it a shot.
On tour with Ozzy was an all-star lineup serving as the musical foundation for the instantly recognizable voice of the Ozman himself. We'll let Ozzy do the introductions.
Let me take this opportunity to introduce the members of my band this evening. Along from Alice in Chains, we have Mr. Mike Inez. Randy Castillo on drums. A new guy on guitar, a guy called Joey Holmes.
I remember his band, like he had different band members at the time. Like I couldn't even remember. Like I don't even think Zakk Wylde was playing guitar at that time in his band. He had a different lineup of guys.
This is Tom F., who made the trip from Rochester to the Collar City for Ozzy's 1996 concert.
My brother at the time was a student in RPI. He was like, you know, Ozzy's coming, Korn's opening, Life of Agony's also opening. And if you guys want to make the trip out, you could just stay at our fraternity house. I was working. I finished up school and then was working here in Rochester, New York, but still kept in touch with my buddies that I live with in Buffalo. So then that's when we made the decision to jump in the car and make the trip from Rochester, New York, all the way out to Troy.
Despite hailing from Rochester, this wouldn't be Tom's first experience at the Field House.
We were both hockey players growing up, so there were times we actually played hockey at the Field House and the surrounding areas. Because we were hockey players, we were out in the Troy area quite a bit. We also had family that lived out there.
I was 16 years old, super excited to be able to see a legend.
This is Caesar, who was just a teenager when Ozzy's Retirement Sucks tour rolled into Troy. No stranger to the Field House, Caesar shared his reflections on the evening's triple bill and his anticipation of finally seeing the Prince of Darkness in person.
I have an older brother, Izzy, who, when the Randy Rhoads Tribute Live album came out, brought that home, and 7-8-year-old me listened to that album and pretty much fell in love with Ozzy and a lot of those songs. So this was like 10 years in the making of being able to see a legend. I had been to RPI Field House before, so I was aware that I was going to be seeing this legend in a smaller setting, 5,000 people-ish. I had been there for an Anthrax Public Enemy show when I was much younger, and was super excited.
As you'll come to hear, Ozzy wasn't the only reason why fans flocked to the Field House on that cold winter evening. The concert's two opening acts, Korn and Life of Agony, had rapidly growing fan bases of their own in the capital region. Caesar recalled Life of Agony kicking off the evening's festivities, delivering a short set to the nearly sold-out arena.
Life of Agony was the first band to start, and I was so excited to see them. I was a fan, and just to hear the powerful voice that came out of Keith Caputo was just amazing. They were a great start to the night.
A big Life of Agony fan, Matt H. also remembers the band's brief but powerful performance for the night's opening slot.
I remember going with my buddy Joe, and we were excited to see the entire bill. Life of Agony opened, played about 5 songs. River Runs Red might be the album I listened to the most in my life.
There to review the show for the RPI student newspaper, Joe Frieda described how fans had packed into the arena early.
I had not heard Life of Agony at all before that night and thought they were a nice opening act. And usually, these days for concerts, if you do go see a show, a lot of times the crowd's kind of late to arrive. Like they don't really care about the opening acts. I remember it was pretty full, even for the opening acts. I was right near the stage, and I'd say the place was mostly full when even the opening acts were going. So that tells you what buzz there really was.
Tom F. recalls a similar atmosphere in the arena that night, along with a big show of support for the entire concert lineup.
Having Life of Agony and Korn there was pretty huge. At the time, we were huge Korn fans. My buddy Bill, actually, he grew up in Goshen, New York, so he knew some of the guys from Life of Agony. Like, he knew Joey Z, Keith Caputo from Life of Agony. So it was pretty exciting to be able to see them. I remember the vibe going in, this, being able to see those three bands and then top it off with Ozzy was pretty special, especially because I've never seen Ozzy before.
I was elated that I was going to be seeing Ozzy, but I was really there for Life of Agony. I remember the crowd was so jacked up.
This is Thomas Mignoni, RPI class of 1982 and award-winning music video director, filmmaker, and screenwriter. Best known for his work with Slipknot, Korn, Mudvayne, Sepultura, Soulfly, Danzig, Toadies, New Order, and countless other world-renowned musical acts. But back in January of 1996, he was still an up-and-coming director working to build his career, frequently directing videos for bands like Life of Agony, who were signed to Roadrunner Records, the legendary metal record label. Mignoni's return to his alma mater that night for the Ozzy show was an exciting moment, both personally and professionally.
I was backstage, which made it a highlight for me. My business was basically becoming familiar with Life of Agony's set and how the band members interplay together, and I was learning about the band and befriending them. And my methodology of being able to shoot a rock video for an artist is I need to be familiar with how the band members work together, what parts of each song are highlighted, and some of their songs, they were going to be possibly on a next record. And so I'm there business-wise with respect to Life of Agony. But once that show wrapped, I'm like, dude, I'm hanging out back here trying to get a glimpse of the man and just kind of like rubbing elbows with the cool cats there, and trying to, warm up to the artist, because that's where my heart is at. But Life of Agony and Roadrunner is what kind of segued me into Sharon and Ozzy and Ozfest. So it all kind of came full circle for me.
A few years later, during his time working on Ozfest, Mignoni had a chance to reconnect with Korn over the RPI Field House show.
When Korn then did Ozfest, which they did a handful of times, I was able to say, dude, I saw you at the Field House up in Troy, and Jonathan was like, dude, you remember that? And I'm like, fuck yeah. It's like I was there. And
our extended interview with Thomas Mignoni is coming soon, including the improbable story behind the music video that almost didn't happen for Life of Agony's song Weeds, the first single off the band's third studio album, Soul Searching Sun. Korn's growing popularity was evident in an interview with frontman Jonathan Davis, published in the Albany Times-Union just one day before the Fieldhouse show, and written by the late Greg Hames, founding member of upstate rockers Blotto and the paper's then arts and entertainment writer. Hames himself was no stranger to the Fieldhouse, performing there with Blotto in 1984. In the article, Davis acknowledged that despite his happiness about the band's success following the release of their self-titled debut album, it also came with drawbacks. Quote, I like to go out for a nice, quiet dinner sometimes, and all these people want to come up and talk about Korn, unquote. But Davis also noted the slower pace of the Ozzy tour allowed the band to continue to work on music for what would eventually become their smash hit follow-up album, Life is Peachy, released October of 1996. But that night in Troy, the band's career was still in its infancy, with just one studio album under their belt, but growing fast as a formidable live act. Here's Joe Frieda again.
Korn I had heard a little of at the time. I think they had one album out. And of course, they went on to super things after that, like just enormous I had heard a few of the songs, but wasn't super into the band. I just thought, okay, check them out. Looking back on the whole thing, I was even talking about this recently when Ozzy had passed away, about memories about Ozzy. And I was asked about if I ever saw him live. And I talked about this concert. I talked about how Korn was an opening act. They're like, wow, what year was that with Korn? I was like, yeah, 96, when they were just starting out. Yeah, it's fun to kind of see an up and coming band. And then at least you can look back on it and say, hey, I saw them when they were first coming up.
Caesar had similar things to say about Korn's set that night in Troy.
Super fortunate to be able to see Korn in that second slot before they became legends. And I have vivid memories of Jonathan Davis clinching his microphone and just kind of sitting there doing his thing that he's known to do now when they perform, and the chaotic movements of the band behind him as they performed. It was just amazing.
Matt H. agreed.
Korn followed and destroyed the place, playing most of their debut.
There are some fundamental and universal elements that make up heavy metal shows. Black t-shirts, drinking beers in the parking lot, and mosh pits.
Merriam-Webster defines mosh pit as, quote, an area in front of a stage where very physical and rough dancing takes place at a rock concert, unquote.
The fans who packed the field house that Saturday night in Troy were ready to mosh with the best of them, as described by several people who were there. Seated near the stage, Joe Frieda had a clear view of the general admission area packed with sweaty fans.
I know that the mosh pit on the floor was pretty active, though. I can't imagine what it was like to be on the floor. I'd like to talk to anyone on how that felt.
This is Charlene, who confirmed the intensity of Korn's performance and the crowd's reaction that night in Troy.
I remember Korn taking the stage, and as soon as they said, "Are you ready?" like the whole floor just went nuts. I mean, it wasn't like a mosh pit, it was the whole floor. It was awesome.
Tom F. also attested to the intensity of the crowd that night, and not just for Korn.
We were the kind of guys that at every show we went to, we'd have to be up front and we'd have to be in the mosh pit. My brother was telling me as we were watching Life of Agony, because my buddy Bill knew a couple of guys, they were high-fiving us at the front of the stage as we're kind of like hanging out. And then I remember Korn coming on. At that point, we were like right in the mosh pit in the middle of things. Ozzy was coming on stage. During the show, we were like, we got to get into the mosh pit during Ozzy. So as we were in the mosh pit, my buddy Bill ends up getting elbowed in the eye. He's kind of leaning over. I'm like, oh, Bill, he lost the contact again or something like that. And then as he came up, we noticed you got a pretty good gash in your eye. There was quite a bit of blood. So then we ended up going over to the a medical staff. They suggested that we should have it checked out, and there was Samaritan Hospital that was pretty close.
And fair credit to Bill, he took one for the team and stuck it out for the remainder of Ozzy's set, bloody eye and all.
So at that point, we were like, you know what, we can't miss the whole Ozzy show. And at the time, he's throwing buckets of water out into the crowd. And that's when my one buddy, Rich, recognized James Monkey Schaefer was there, kind of just taking in the show from the sidelines.
The person Tom F. is referencing here is Monkey, guitarist and co-founding member of Korn.
So we went over and we're like, hey, awesome show, and kind of hanging out, shooting the shit with him. And he just seemed like a chill guy. Korn was pretty much in their prime at that time. So, you bump into someone like him and you never know what to expect. And I just remember him just kind of just hanging out with us, taking it, Ozzy's up there, clapping. Like, you meet these musicians and some guys have huge egos. And I just remember him kind of just being quiet and shy.
At the time, we actually went more to see Life of Agony and Korn.
This is Christian, a local musician and heavy music fan who recalled being in awe of seeing some of his favorite bands who normally perform in small clubs and venues across upstate New York instead sharing the stage with Ozzy Osbourne at a mid-sized arena like the RPI Field House.
We had seen Korn, Life of Agony at clubs. We saw Life of Agony at the QE2 in Albany. We saw them a few months later at Bogey's, where they did 2 shows in one night that were both sold out. Just a few months before the Ozzy show, November of 95, we went to the Lost Horizon in Syracuse and saw Korn, which was an amazing show. When they announced the Ozzy show and they said Life of Agony and Korn are opening, my friends and I couldn't believe it, because these guys were out there for a few years playing clubs, small places, and all of a sudden they're opening for Ozzy and doing an arena tour. We were just blown away by that.
But Christian was quick to give credit to the Osbournes for helping shine a spotlight on smaller bands and introducing them to a wider audience.
Ozzy always had a track record of taking up-and-coming bands that were kind of on the cutting edge, doing something different, and that show is no exception. That was really inspiring for us, because we were all in a band, and back then when there was still a music industry, you could dream of an opportunity like that. You know, the right band with the right songs at the right time could potentially end up getting on a huge tour like that. Those days don't really exist anymore.
Here's Matt H. again, sharing his memories of Life of Agony and the band's Black Sabbath connection via legendary bassist Geezer Butler.
In 1997, Life of Agony played 2 nights at the QE2 with GZR open. Geezer came up from the basement to play, and I was standing right there. 20-year-old me could just shake his hand and say thank you. It was so cool to meet him.
Leading up to the Troy concert, the Ozman himself also spoke with the Times Union's Greg Hames. In a separate article published the day before the Troy concert, Ozzy reflected on his career and the manic reputation that seemed to follow him everywhere. Quote, "People take Ozzy Osbourne far too seriously. The person that you see on stage and the person you're talking to right now are 2 completely separate entities." Unquote. Ozzy goes on to explain his happiness with the return to the stage as a performer after his pseudo-retirement. Quote, "It's really great to be back. More than anything else, I miss the crowds. Do you know the old saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone? Well, that's me. And considering there was a 3-year layoff, I'm really stunned at the crowd response. It's been truly remarkable." Unquote. In reading back this interview in 2026, I wondered if a recording of Hames' interview with Ozzy exists somewhere, maybe in Hames' personal archive. Hames died in 2019, leaving behind a prolific portfolio of stories and interviews with some of the world's biggest musicians. Like the best journalism, it provided us historical context for this specific period in Ozzy's career as we developed this episode. Hames' interview with Osbourne is linked in the episode notes. By the time Ozzy was preparing to hit the stage that night in Troy, the crowd was primed and ready for his arrival. The energy of the nearly 6,000 fans that filled the field house was reaching a fever pitch as the minutes ticked down. One of the most important sources of history and information available online is archive.org, also known as the Internet Archive. And as mentioned earlier, that's where we stumbled onto our biggest find yet. Video footage of Ozzy's entire 1996 concert at the RPI Field House in the Collar City. You know, in the era of smartphones with movie-quality cameras in our pockets, the availability of an entire concert doesn't seem all that amazing. But in 1996, seeing a concert was a one-and-done experience, with only a few limited ways to revisit them. The memories in your own head, of course, as best as you can recall them. Photos from music journalists or local television stations covering the show, or hoping someone bootlegged the concert, either on audio or video. But pre-internet, tape trading was the primary way shows could be shared, something an average fan had no idea how to look for. It was only with the advent of online forums, high-speed internet connections, and later YouTube that recordings of some of the world's most famous musicians began to appear online, including Ozzy's '96 concert in Troy. As the video begins, a massive curtain is obscuring the stage, playing a highlight reel that cut Ozzy into famous pop culture moments and music videos of the era, to the overwhelming enjoyment of the crowd. As the video comes to a close, the intro music swells, the curtain drops, and reveals Ozzy himself. The arena goes absolutely ballistic.
I vividly remember the anticipation of the crowd, that buzz, that energy that you could feel, and as the lights came down, there was a roar, and you knew that people were ready for something amazing. Seeing somebody who on stage just commanded the attention of the audience, the energy we could feel as members of that audience, and it was impossible for a person to sit in that audience and not be excited. You just knew that something special was happening up on that stage. The music and the band, everything was amazing.
Massive video screens perched atop platforms flanked Ozzy and the band, giving the audience close-up shots of the on-stage antics throughout the evening.
The production of the stage, while minimal, was perfect. The music did all the talking. Some bands nowadays rely too much on production, and that wasn't a thing that was needed for Ozzy. That his performance and the music, that's what mattered, and that's what got people excited.
As mentioned earlier, Ozzy's 14-song set was heavy on hits from his solo career, along with 4 Sabbath tracks. But his performance that night skipped over several albums entirely, including 1998's No Rest for the Wicked and 1989's Ultimate Sin.
Ozzy was great. There's only one new song and a bunch of Sabbath covers. Paranoid, Iron Man, War Pigs, all classics and great to hear them.
The second song of the night was I Don't Know, the first track off Ozzy's first solo record, Blizzard of Oz. His voice is strong, reaching the high notes of the song's iconic melody, driven by Inez and Castillo's pounding backbeat. Again, the crowd eats it up, screaming back the song's key refrain. Meanwhile, Ozzy was blasting the audience with a massive water gun while guitarist Joe Holmes absolutely shreds his fingers off. Next, the band launched into Flying High Again, the hit single from Ozzy's second solo record, Diary of a Madman. Ozzy struggles a bit with some of the high notes on this track, which is understandable. It's incredibly difficult to pitch that high for extended periods of time. The band, however, is taking full advantage of the stage setup, with Holmes dashing up the stairs to rip a solo standing in front of the video screen. Then slowing things down, Ozzy launches into Goodbye to Romance. It's another crowd pleaser, with Ozzy successfully urging the audience to join in. And as the song comes to a close, Ozzy continues to goad the crowd before launching into the hit solo track, I Don't Want to Save the World, from his multi-platinum selling LP, No More Tears. Despite selling over 1 million copies since its release in October of 1995, only one track, I Just Want You, from Ozzy's new album, Osmosis, made the setlist that night. The keyboard-heavy performance gets a respectable response from the crowd. Interestingly enough, the song wouldn't become a single until 7 months later, in August of 1996. Ozzy would ultimately release a different track, See You on the Other Side, co-written with Zakk Wylde and Motorhead frontman Lemmy Kilmister, as the album's next single on January 29, 1996, just 2 days after the Troy show. In watching back the concert footage from that night in Troy, it's guitar player Joe Holmes who stands out the most. In the pantheon of shredders that have backed Ozzy during his multi-decade career, including Randy Rhoads, Zakk Wylde, and Jake E. Lee, Holmes is definitely overlooked. I think in large part because he never performed on an Ozzy studio album. But at the Field House in Troy that night, Holmes commanded his side of the stage, shredding the paint off the walls, showcasing both technical prowess and musical feel across the full spectrum of Ozzy classics, all while being subjected to the antics of the Prince of Darkness himself. For those who don't know, Holmes is no slouch on the six strings, previously studying under former Ozzy Axeman Randy Rhoads, along with stints with Lizzie Borden and former Van Halen lead singer David Lee Roth. Around halfway through the 90-minute concert, the band launches into Suicide Solution, the controversial track off Ozzy's 1980 debut album, Blizzard of Oz. Deviating from the original arrangement, the band launches into an extended jam that showcases Holmes' abilities on the guitar. And for the next 3 minutes, backed by the powerful rhythm section of Inez and Castillo, Holmes takes the audience on a journey of guitar wizardry that reminded everyone why Ozzy chose him as his musical counterpart on the live stage. And from this point on in the show, the hits keep on coming, with Ozzy transitioning to a string of Black Sabbath tracks, beginning with Iron Man from the band's breakthrough 1970 LP, Paranoid. Ozzy leads the crowd in singing the main riff. And just before the track reaches that climactic guitar solo, the iconic coughing sample signals a transition to Sweet Leaf from Sabbath's beloved Master of Reality album. Ozzy struggles vocally a little bit, the intensity of the performance carries the song forward before the band transitions to another track from Master of Reality, Children of the Grave. With the stage awash in green light, the band delivers a powerful, muscular rendition of the classic Sabbath song. True to form, Ozzy never lets off the gas, commanding the audience's attention with his trademark headbanging and hand-clapping combo move, and whipping buckets of water into the crowd. The fans are going absolutely mental, asking to be blasted with water. Every time it seems like the audience should be running out of steam, the place would erupt with the introduction of the next track. And as you'll hear with the next song, it was no different.
It's a song called War Pigs.
The band's performance on War Pigs is tight and punchy, with Inez and Castillo driving the song forward. Ozzy's voice is incredibly strong, belting out the instantly recognizable melody of the track, even when joined by a pig-eared wearing fan on stage, and later that iconic outro guitar line. At this point in the show, the setlist returns to Ozzy's solo material, but not before another command to the audience to lose their minds.
You know what? You ain't going fucking crazy! Come on, wake up!
And with that, Ozzy introduces one of his most famous songs.
There's a song called Mr. Crowley.
As the keyboard intro ripples through the arena, at Ozzy's urging, hundreds of cigarette lighters are held aloft by fans. A visual reminder of the concert's pre-cell phone era. Holmes delivers the song's trademark solos, standing in front of the video screens, displaying Crowley and other occult-related imagery. All while Ozzy blasts the audience with a water gun before the song's big rock ending. as he had done all night, Ozzy continues to send the fans into higher and higher levels of hysteria, repeatedly tempting them with a likely less than realistic offer for the craziest fan to get backstage after the show. And according to many people we heard from, one fan took it to the extreme. A story that came up frequently in listener memories was a crazed fan hanging from the rafters of the field house as the band performed Crazy Train. How appropriate. Here's Charlene again, who recalled the shocking moment.
My friends and I were sitting in seats, and as he had said, the craziest mofo there was going backstage with him.
But you remember the fucking promise I made when I first walked on this stage? The craziest motherfucker I see out there will get backstage after the show. Now let me hear a crazy fucking crowd, come on! I want you to go extra, 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 extra fucking crazy!
And all of a sudden I see everybody pointing up above me, and there was a guy shimmying across the beam, like with his fingertips on the steel beam. I was so afraid he was going to fall. Like, I left my seat. I didn't want him falling on me.
Matt H. also remembers the incident.
We had seats on stage left, maybe 2 or 3 sections from the stage. Right before Crazy Train, Ozzy says the craziest fan will get backstage passes. During the song, I remember a guy climbing out on the rafters and hanging upside down. The whole section was pointing at him. Definitely the craziest fan in there.
Here's Joe Frieda again.
I don't remember seeing that. I was pretty close to the stage, so I'm not sure where that happened in the building, but that sounds pretty wild.
As Ozzy and the band blast through the track, the crowd carries the chorus and claps in unison with Osbourne. Holmes continues to let the guitar solos fly, appearing on the jumbo screen superimposed with a video of Randy Rhoads. I can't overstate the level that people are losing their shit at this point in the show, especially so deep into a concert set list. And Ozzy is right there with them, frog hopping and whipping more buckets of water into the crowd before the first curtain call of the night. The band gives a quick bow and disappears from the stage, and the cameras pan the RPI Arena crowd, first left, then right, then back to the stage. Stomping feet and screaming voices bring Ozzy back to the microphone for the show's encore and to introduce one of his biggest hits.
Listen, have you had a good time tonight, man? We had a fucking blast, man. You want to hear some more music, yeah? You know what? I fucking know in my soul, man, if I've still got one, that you could go a little bit over the top more, man. There's a song called Mama, I'm Coming Home.
With the arena illuminated in purple light, Ozzy begins to sing over the instantly recognizable guitar intro for the song Mama, I'm Coming Home. as cigarette lighters again begin to appear in the outstretched hands of the 6,000 fans there that night in Troy, the song builds to the first crescendo, the guitar solo. Fans join in with Ozzy to carry the song's final refrain through the end. The evening closed with the seminal Ozzy track, Bark at the Moon. The machine gun riff signaling to the crowd that they had one final chance to go crazy before the night would come to an end.
Alright, we're gonna do just one more. You gotta go fucking for it, man. Do what the fuck you like. Anything. Bark at the moon.
And despite a 14-song concert, Ozzy was full of energy to the final note of the evening, pacing across the stage, blasting fans with water, and at one point mooning the entire audience on the big screen. And with the song's signature howl, the outro guitar solo brings the concert to a close. As Ozzy and his band took a final bow and disappeared behind the curtains just after 11 p.m., the thousands of fans began pouring out into the crisp January night air. But remember Tom F's friend Bill with the eye injury? For them, the evening wasn't quite over yet, with the group making a stop at Samaritan Hospital, which, fortunately, was located directly across the street from the field house.
And then after the show, we were like, we got to go get him checked out at the hospital. So we went, got him stitched up. And at that point, we were sitting in the waiting room and the nurse comes out and they're like, why don't you guys come back? You guys don't look like you're that drunk. So we go back and end up getting a couple stitches in Bill's eye. As he's getting stitched up, he's telling Rich and I, he's like, you know what? He's like, you can't tell my dad that this happened in the mosh pit. Because earlier that summer, he ended up injuring his knee at another show in the middle of a mosh pit. He ended up spraining his knee. So his dad's like, you guys are getting too old. You can't go in the mosh pit anymore. So he's like, you got to tell my dad that I fell down the stairs. So the RPI Field House is the famous location of my buddy Bill falling down the stairs and getting his eye cut and having to get stitched up. So
I asked Joe Frieda for his reaction to Tom F's story.
That's amazing. That's some story. I don't think I remember that. Yeah, it was pretty wild in the pit. I remember I was like, wow, I'm glad I'm up here, not in that down there, but it looked fun.
In the course of developing this episode, we only found fond memories from everyone there that night in Troy to see the Prince of Darkness.
It was an amazing night. I'm so fortunate that I was able to see a legend at this time in his career, and I was able to see him again in the future, in future dates. But that's the one that stands out when it comes to Ozzy, and my memories.
29 years later, Osbourne bid farewell to the world as a performer during the aforementioned Back to the Beginning concert, held in Birmingham, England. It was a triumphant finale and an emotional end cap to a nearly 6-decade-long career.
Comes our final song for the era. I just want to say to you on behalf of the guys in Black Sabbath and myself, that your support over the years has made it all possible for us to live a lifestyle we do. Thank you from the bottom of our heart. I love you, we love you. There's a song called Paranoid.
Just 17 days later, Ozzy was dead of a heart attack, a sudden and shocking moment that rippled across the world. My conversation with Thomas McNoney eventually landed on Ozzy's death, and despite our age difference, I found the emotional impact was a shared experience.
I went to the services in UK, and I cried. I mean, I really, really did. Because he was such a figure to me growing up, listening to songs like Paranoid, listening to Mr. Crowley. Like, this was like the soundtrack for me growing up. And his passing, I mean, I don't want to sound trite or anything, but I really did mourn for several weeks. It did rock me back, and I'm like, fuck, man. I knew it was inevitable, but I wish it didn't happen, and I wish it didn't happen when it did, because, exactly what you're saying, John. It's like I felt like a part of me was kind of then died with it,
As I spent countless months swimming in the research, stories, music, and visuals of that night in Troy, the lack of cell phones anywhere got me thinking about an era that no longer exists. A time when our experiences weren't shared online in real time, but instead only with the friends you were there with, and you weren't staring at a screen recording the concert you paid to attend in person. Some of my all-time favorite memories are concerts with friends, lost in the music and the moments happening right in front of us. It's in sharp contrast to our forever online world seen through the lens of our phones. It makes me re-examine my own fixation with my phone and technology. Maybe we all need to log off for good. Sure, maybe in the grand scheme, Ozzy's concert in Troy on January 27th, 1996 is generally inconsequential in the broader arc of music history. Just one night in a longer tour in the multi-decade career of Ozzy Osbourne. But for the nearly 6,000 people there in Troy that night to see the Prince of Darkness, they were living in that moment together, part of a shared human experience that only they have. And the stories shared during the course of this episode affirms it. Thank you to the countless people who submitted their story about Ozzy's 1996 concert in the Collar City. It was an incredible challenge working through the hours worth of audio to piece together the story of that night in Troy.
I wanted to thank Troy Story for giving me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts and memories regarding the Ozzy Osbourne show at RPI Field House.
I ranked the Ozzy concert at least in my top 3 that I saw live ever. Yeah, it was fun thinking back to all this, and I'm looking forward to watching the final one that comes out. I'm sure I'll be watching it several times, just reliving everything.
Troy has a great hardcore punk music history, and 3 of my friends have been on the show, Delaney, Ralph, and Bittner. There's tons of amazing bands and legendary venues like the South Shore Community Center and the Hudson Duster. Lots of good music episodes to talk about Troy. Thanks for letting me share my memories about the Ozzy show in Troy, John.
I listened to your podcast here and there just to see what it was all about. And it's pretty cool that you do this. And I listened to the Metallica one. That was pretty cool, where you had a couple different people talk about that show. I enjoyed the podcast. It's pretty neat that I stumbled across this.
And thank you for coming along on this journey back to this special moment in Troy's heavy metal history. A special thank you to WNYT News Channel 13 for sharing broadcast sound we used in this episode. Additional thanks to Ed Parham for his audio contributions as well. A quick addendum as we close the book on this special concert retrospective episode. In early 2026, we asked Troy's City Council if they would be willing to acknowledge the 30th anniversary of Ozzy's first and only concert in the Collar City. And they graciously agreed, unanimously passing a resolution recognizing the show.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have commemorated Ozzy unanimously.
But in the weeks leading up to the final vote, we learned Troy's Republican Party was attempting to demonize the resolution honoring Ozzy. Troy's previous Republican mayor, Harry Tutungin, tweeted, quote, "The crazy train has left the station," unquote. The post was shared on the Troy Republican Committee's Facebook page, where, hilariously, they misspelled Ozzy's name as Ozzzie. Even weirder was recently unseated Republican council member Bill Keel posting on his Facebook page, quote, "Sounds like they're practically holding a seance to resurrect Ozzy Osbourne by honoring him as the Prince of Darkness who was in Troy 30 years ago. What kind of far-reaching legislation is this?" Unquote. But to her credit, the sponsor of the resolution, Councilmember Katie Spain McLaren, took it all in stride.
So never did I imagine there would be so much backlash against this resolution.
Poor Ozzy.
Yeah. Now, whether or not you're a fan of heavy metal music or Black Sabbath or Ozzy Osbourne, he did contribute a great deal to the music scene. He did just recently pass away. As a kid growing up in Troy, the RPI Field House was like the only game in town. It was the only place where there are enough seats to have big shows. Now, by the time he came in 1996, there were other venues. So the fact that we were still pulling in such a big show in Troy, I just think it's a neat piece of Troy history. Certainly not meant to detract from the other important work that we are doing as a council. Just kind of a lighthearted way to spotlight an important event that happened in Troy 30 years ago.
All we will say is, not everything has to be partisan. Ozzy is for everyone. If you want to see video of Ozzy's triumphant concert in Troy, or if you were there that night Ozzy roared into town, visit troystorypod.com/Ozzy. We'd love to hear from you. You can also drop us a message at mail@troystorypod.com. That is mail@troystorypod.com. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and subscribe for email updates on our website to get notified when new episodes are available. Until next time, love yourself, love one another, and may Pod save Troy. Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City, is hosted, written, edited, and produced by me, John Salka. Our theme music is by Stephen J. Goldman at Four Legs Records. Like what you heard? Please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City. This is incredibly helpful for getting others to find our show. Want to know more? Visit troystorypod.com to see upcoming episodes, guests, and bonus content. Thanks for listening. The views or opinions expressed by guests are their own and not of the host or Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City.